Oseo, Candace Bird Dawado. Hello, my name is Candace Bird, and I am a Cherokee storyteller, and I am here today broadcasting from the Cherokee National History Museum. And I am here to tell you the story of the strange husband. There was once a young woman who lived with her parents in a village, with her father and her mother, and every night her mother would prepare things from their garden, food, squash, beans, pumpkins, to prepare for their dinner, and their father would bring home the meat to add to their meal. Well, for a few winters there, game was very hard to come by, and the father would take his daughter out to hunt with him, so that way they could carry enough game and hunt enough meat in order to have supper. Well, one winter, the girl's father fell very ill, deathly ill, and the girl waited on him hand and foot, bringing him soup and bringing him water every day to make sure that he got better. And every night when she brought him supper, she noticed an owl outside his window that would call, "Hoo hoo, hoo hoo," as she brought him supper. One night, she was bringing her father supper and she opened the window to let some air in. Well, the owl swooped inside the room, flew around once, and flew out the window crying, "Hoo hoo, hoo hoo." And she noticed that the owl had 2 stripes down his head. Well, after the owl left, her father clutched his chest and fell back against his bed dead. And the young girl grieved her father for a long time after this. And after her period of mourning was over, her mother came to her and told her daughter that she was getting older and needed more help in the kitchen preparing food for dinner, and that she should find a good hunter for a husband to help them get enough meat to make for their supper. And the young girl reluctantly agreed. So the girl went out to try to hunt enough game for supper that night, and she came across this young hunter with a turban wrapped around his head. And she asked the young hunter, "Are you a very good hunter?" And the young man said, "Oh yes, I am a great hunter. I can bring down turkey, I can bring down deer and bear and all the big game." And the young woman was very impressed by this young man, and he was also very good looking. So she brought the young man home to her mother. And after a time of talking and visiting with the young man and getting to know him, the young woman and her mother decided that he was probably the young hunter for her. And the mother gave her consent that they should be married. Well, for a time after their marriage, the young man would bring home deer, and he would bring home turkey, and he would bring home bear, enough meat for their supper time. But after some time, he began to bring home strange animals, things like lizards and frogs and 1 fish or just 2 fish for dinner. This wasn't enough for their dinner, and the mother and her daughter were very displeased with the young man, and because he would be gone all day long and just bring home little scraps of food for dinner. And every day the young man promised them, "I'll find better game tomorrow. I'll find better game tomorrow." And so one day, the young woman got curious and decided to follow her husband on his hunting trip. And as she followed him into the woods, she watched him transform into an owl as he was fishing. And as the owl was watching the water sitting so still, he dipped inside the water and caught a crawdad. So the young woman rushed home so that way she could be home to greet her husband when he came home. And as he came home, the young girl confronted the young man and said, "I thought I married a man, but you're only an owl." And the young man took off his turban, and she saw the 2 stripes on his head, and she realized that he was the owl who had swooped into her father's room before he died. And at that, she grew very angry at him and chased him away from the house. And that is the story of the strange husband. WHOO, and thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this Cherokee story and you want to hear more stories, click this link.